Now let me ask a question that is, in a way, it's both related to and not related to the fact that you're a psychologist, and has more to do with the fact that you are an expert and that you've had so much experience working with women who've experienced both violence of various forms and domestic violence. What do you think are some of the biggest reasons why we haven't been able to get rid of that problem? I mean, it's anyway, your thoughts.
Oh my goodness, that's such a gigantic problem. I should add that to my list of questions that I so fearful of when I go talk about my book. What are all the horrible questions I can get? You know,
that's a huge question.
I think it's because we really haven't. I mean, despite the fact that we have poured so much time and money and energy into the problem, and we have. Not enough, but we have. It's barely made a dent, and I think that has to do with patriarchy and gender roles and all of the things that feminists talk about. I also think it has, on a more sort of fine-grained level, I think that our response to domestic violence has sort of been at odds with what women actually need. And I think, I mean, that is the subject of this book, that I think that, you know, we made a decision as feminists in the 70s and the 60s and 70s to sort of focus a laser beam on the idea that domestic violence, for example, crosses class lines, that it is a problem of rich white people just as a problem of low-income people. And of course that's true, but it's not the whole truth, because in fact it's a class problem. I mean, domestic violence occurs much more in impoverished communities for obvious reasons. I think they're obvious. You know, there's just women can't escape, and they have no choices, and there's a lot more stress in the family, and unemployment, male unemployment is associated with domestic violence. And so I think that many of our efforts have focused on the sort of middle class, white, you know, this ideal of this completely blameless victim, when in fact women often hit back, and they are, you know, sort of, they have millions of problems in their lives, domestic violence being one among many. And so we, in our sort of white middle class feminist way, focus on, this cannot be happening to you. This is a gender problem. You have to leave your family, your community, your partner. And in fact, the women who are being victimized don't understand it that way, and see it as one among a whole complex of problems, and they're not about to leave their community or even their partner necessarily, and they're certainly not going to leave, you know, the only economic stability they have, or often they're not. And so I think some of the problem is that we're trying to, our responses in the criminal justice system and our advocacy responses, and certainly our mental health responses, don't address the needs of the people who escape violent relationships. You know, that doesn't get to the root causes. It's sort of like how we cut it down as it happens. But I think the root causes, you know, there's just a million theories about that out there. I buy the patriarchy one, and a lot of people, you know, with complexities and nuances, because women do have their share of aggression too. But I think we don't really know. I think that it's a big fat mystery why, even despite patriarchy and gender role socialization and traditional views of men and women, we have not made a dent in it over the last bunch of decades.